right, come on over. Excellent.
Emotion is an attitude, and when
Be careful at the bottom.
you take a child and you push the child out the house without a meal, and that child is given a meal provided by the government, and that government meal is full of high fructose corn syrup, and that food is full of starch, and that child is asked to sit in the classroom under one of these teachers and perform off of that, something's going to happen. 3 of those 25 or 35 children are going to end up in detention because they just can't control all that sugar and all that starch. Blessing being there that they have something in their stomachs, it's not a balanced thing.
In conventional agriculture, the soil is basically a medium to hold plants up in, and we force feed plants with water-soluble artificial fertilisers. So the plants don't have any choice. If you make a fertiliser soluble, then the roots don't have any choice. They have to take that up. In organic agriculture, the soil, the fertiliser comes through the soil. So it comes through the soil water as a sort of a solution through humus and acidifying fungi and other organisms in the soil that are releasing or that are chelating and releasing all of those nutrients and making them available. So it's coming through the soil water and that sort of exchange.
When we're modifying the very genetic structures of plants and putting that into the world, we don't know what effect that's going to have on local ecosystems, on health. There could be gene combinations that end up having impacts that we can't even envision ahead of time. And yet the stuff is going out there with great pace. And I think part of what we're doing is saying that's one global experiment and that's one kind of approach. There's some flaws in that, and it's not in our best interest to be necessarily putting our eggs in that basket. We really need to look at alternatives that are ecologically based. We really need to ask ourselves, how can we supply our basic food needs without undermining biological diversity, without undermining the environmental quality that really is about our future. If we have a food system that's eroding soil, that's polluting the water, that's not a food system that's going to be reliable in 100 years. When the New Agrarian Center started to manage the George Jones Farm as a community farm and education center, we had taken over a farm that previously was following basic industrial agriculture. It was corn and soybeans, a lot of heavy equipment, a lot of chemicals sprayed. We found a soil that was pretty much completely denuded of topsoil. So in many ways, the farm became kind of this microcosm for the impacts of industrial agriculture, and then the process of how do you go about restoring the farm ecosystem. And when I say farm ecosystem, I mean the topsoil, the habitat, the biological diversity, kind of all those things. How do we restore that ecological health?
There's a nice book from the 50s, I think it's an American book actually, Topsoil and Civilization, and it Topsoil and Civilization, and it just maps for thousands of years all of these civilizations that have come and gone, and the relationship between their treatment of the soil and their longevity. And obviously some of those have had some climate change events when that happens, but a lot of those climate change events have been induced by removal of forests, removal of soils, and all of the rest of it. So yeah, there's a direct connect between the health of the true health of a nation, and the health of its soils.
If you look historically and even anthropologically, you can see a lot of actual correlations between biological diversity and the health of local ecosystems in the presence of indigenous cultures. So there are ways that people have historically have interacted with their land that are not environmentally destructive, in fact that could be environmentally beneficial. So I think that's kind of the orientation of local food systems. It's about restoring those local food webs, and if that's happening as it is right now across the nation, this is a national, if not global movement, It's about all of us kind of restoring those local food webs on our own.
So, you know, those sorts of practices of building up our gardens, making our landscapes edible as opposed to ornamental, or a combination of both, at least, so that we can build all of these base food resources in our suburbs, around our houses, and then ultimately go out into our farms. If we all did that, then we would need less farmland. And that farmland could then be returned to some sort of native state. Now, that was one of the original premises of permaculture, that if we actually brought food production into our homes and around our homes, zoned it back there again, then we wouldn't need to have anywhere near as much land covered with the destructive practice that is agriculture.
These are shiitake mushroom logs. They're a little past their prime. These have been bearing fruit for the last 6 years. And so
Everything from family farms, Amish farms, retired people and young people growing food in vacant lots in the city. Here at the Jones Farm, young folks coming out of Oberlin College or from the local community, learning how to farm, and I think together we're starting to create something that's more sustainable. But it's all rooted in community, and I think that's the connection between the food we eat and where we live, is that community, because food is what creates that community, and that community is what's needed to restore our ecosystems back to health.